Hi, I'm Eileen Gittins. I'm the CEO and founder of Blurb, and I'm here at Luminance 2012. Honestly, I think the future of photography is as integral to humanity as words have been historically. I think that images are the new lingua franca, the new way in which we communicate. So how many of you watched any of the Democratic National Convention last week? Yeah, okay. So note to self after I watched that, never follow Bill Clinton on stage. So here's a postscript, never follow an astronaut on stage. Many thanks to the PhotoShelter folks who carved an hour out between Donald and me. So I'm here today, and thanks Alan for the kind remarks, I'm here today to talk about the book today, the book past, the book present, the book future, and I think that has a lot to do with self-curation. You know, when I started the company back in 2005, I worked for Kodak for many years, and I got really frustrated after I was doing a body of personal work. I was photographing fellow entrepreneurs doing some environmental portraits of the people who built the 1.0 world. And I wanted to share this body of work with these people, and there was no freaking way I was going to make 50 custom prints times 50 people. And I thought, well, sure, you know, I'll just make a book, you know? How hard can that be? Famous last words of an entrepreneur. I think a lot of companies are born out of personal pain, and this company is no exception. Because at the time, what there were these photo album things from consumer companies, which were great. I tried them, and I got them back, and I thought, no, this is not going to work. I needed a real book. And so we developed the company to respond to people like you guys in the audience, and people like me who were very discerning about the work that we were doing, and image quality, color fidelity, materiality really mattered. Now, back when I started the company in 2005, this whole notion of self-publishing was kind of a pejorative. It's like, oh, you couldn't get a real publisher? That is hugely changed. And to start off the presentation, I want to show you a funny little quote from a guy who's been traditionally published and within the last 2 years made the segue over to the self-published world. If you self-publish a book, you'll stand out, you'll make more money, you will kick your competitors right in the ass, and you'll look amazingly cool at cocktail parties. I know this because I'm seldom cool, but at cocktail parties with my very own comic book, I can basically have sex with anyone in the room. But don't believe me, it costs you nothing and almost no time to try it for yourself. Well, I'm not sure about the sex in the room. It does take a little bit of time, but it does actually cost you almost no money. So 1 out of 3 isn't bad. Previously, for many of you how many of you have been traditionally published by a traditional publisher? Yeah, that was about 3 hands out of about a bajillion people here. And that's because there used to be a lot of gatekeepers in the field, whether it was movies, films, records, magazines, whatever. Other people decided on our behalf what we would want to consume and what we would want to pay money for. Now, that is all changed. And now what we're seeing is the democratization of media across every media type, whether it's magazines, books, videos, comics, music, etc. So in a world where you can do anything, and now it's up to you, that's the good and the bad news, because now it's your call as to what are you going to do as a response. Now, earlier today, we heard a number of people talk about memory, and I'm going to talk about that a little bit too. But my spin on that is a little bit different, because I'm going to talk not only about memory, but about physical and digital artifacts. Last night, we were at a speaker's dinner not far from here, and it happened to be 9/11, as you all know. And I remember when that event happened, and I was a subscriber at that time, and still am, by the way, to the paper and now digital edition of the New York Times. Back on 9/11, the original event, I only subscribed to the paper edition. And how many of you remember that time when the New York Times was running the still images and the little blurbs about the people who had passed? I don't know about you, but I will tell you, when I saw those images and I read every story and I looked at every image, that was more profound to me than all the video footage that I was seeing on the nightly news. And I stopped and thought about why was that so? And I think it's because still imagery gives us the gift of time. And materiality lets us turn the page at our own pace. And as someone who is running an internet company who knows full well that that next button is less than a nanosecond away, I will tell you that for myself, when I make the choice between reading a physical book and reading a digital book, I think long and hard about how I'm going to want to consume that content, whether or not it's something I want to keep or whether it's something I want to consume. And with photography and images and stories, they live in both worlds, and they should live in both worlds. But the first part of my presentation here is about materiality and about artifacts and about the power of memory. How many of you know this site, Burning House? If you don't, check it out. So the construct of it is if your house was burning, what are the things that you would fit into a single box that you would take with you? Now, when I was at Kodak several years ago, we used to have this saying around the Great Yellow Father, right? Which is, you know, if your house was on fire, what people first take is their photographs. Now, in a digital age, I wondered about that very question. And so I went onto their site, and I'm going to show you 4 images that I've pulled, did a screen grab from their site, which are really representative of all the kinds of things that I saw. Now, on the first one, every single one of these, by the way, had a combination of digital imagery, digital media, and physical media. That was really interesting. In every image that I saw, there were photographic images, most of the time in print. This particular one, as you can see, he's got his Hasselblad, he's got a bottle of wine, why, whatever. Maybe needed a drink if the house was burning down. He's got some print photographs, he's got some vinyl, he's got, you know, his iPad, he's got his passport, he's got it all. Okay, here's another one. So when I first saw this, I thought, you know, sheets, really? But it's her grandmother's quilt. So that was handed down from her mother to her. It's a very powerful totem to this woman. But also, she's got a number of journals. She's an illustrator. She writes. She's got cameras. She's got her wallet. She's got headphones, right? So you're going to see a theme here around photography. Duane Michaels, my hero. Duane Michaels' book, physical images, Polaroids, cameras, old camera, Raleighs. You know, you got it all going on. Okay, but so then, this is the pièce de résistance. So then there was a book made about the virtual artifacts online of the physical artifacts from people's real lives. And I thought that was a very interesting metaphor for what we're actually seeing at Blurb, and that is, it's all good. And there are just different moments when you want to be virtual, when you want to be digital, and you want to be physical. And I think our jobs as creators is to think about the affordances that each bring us. And so that's the next part of the presentation here. And I want to talk now a little bit about weight. Because with books, books have physical mass. They have physical weight. And I think many of us equate weight to moment, to things that matter to us. If it has weight, it matters more. Well, this is sometimes true and sometimes not true, but we are physical beings, and we live in physical space. And so I think there's something to the weight of books. How many of you know Craig Maud or know who he is? If you don't, several. If you don't, totally check him out. He is a remarkable writer. He is a book guy, and he was most recently the designer for the iPhone Flipboard application. He'd been living in Tokyo. I met him a couple of years ago, and he gave me a copy of the book he had made about Tokyo, which is fantastic. So here's this guy working at Flipboard on the iPhone application, which is all bits, right, for a year. And at the end of the year, he's feeling like, what did we do? Where's all the work? Because the work is now represented in this little dimension called an iPhone. But there were 15 guys working on this for a year. So in their postmortems, they got around a conference room table, and the question really became, good questions. What did we do well? What did we not do well? But the evidence of what we did, the journey, it just, there was a vacuum. Now, because Craig is a book guy, you know, the irony of this is not lost on me, guys. The guy is making an app for the iPhone, and the way to document his journey became, yes, you got it, a book. So the story is, in this room with 15 people who are all feeling good, but it was sort of empty, he plops down this 1 foot square inch blurb book on the table that weighs 8 pounds with a solid thud. And 15 people crowded around this one book like it was magic. And it was magic because it was the evidence of their journey. It was showing all the decisions not taken and the decisions taken. And all of those people in the room could celebrate where they had started, what they went through, and how they got to the end of the process. And I thought that was a really another interesting story about this combination between our digital lives and our physical lives using somebody who is a great bookmaker. So then I started to think about, you know, I live in San Francisco, and I am fortunate enough to have a small weekend house up in Sonoma County, which is like a real foodie place. And I started to think about the analogy of print is kind of like slow food. There's a place for fast food, good fast food, place for that. But there's definitely a place for slow food. And I think about Materiality having a really important moment in our lives when everything goes virtual. Somehow I think it is true that when you take it to print, you are making a different kind of statement and you're giving a different kind of experience to your audience. All right, so that's the physical part, because we live in both worlds, right? Fundamentally, we are a technology company. I don't know if you guys know this. We're not even the printer. We have print partners all over the world, and we have invested a huge amount of time and energy in building out color management and ICC profiles and the like to make sure that we get consistency. But as a company, the people who work at our company, they're all internet people. So we're fundamentally a technology company. And so we live in a screen-based world. All day long, that's all I do. I live in a screen-based world. And I think of this as a very weightless world. So contrasting to the weight of physicality, now we're going to talk a little bit about weightlessness. Okay, so unlike weight, this is rich, slim, and available. So now you can not only make a book in physical form, but there are lots of ways that you can make an ebook. This one happens to be an ebook for the iPad from our own company, but I encourage all of you who are doing work to consider how you might take your work into this e-world. Apple, as you know, has a fixed format 2-page spread API we can write to that preserves all the design decisions that you make in your physical print book file. So those can now be converted by us, but I'm sure by others too, and you can now represent this in the ebook world. So why would you want to do this? We talk a lot to photographers all over the world, and there are a lot of questions swirling around, like, well, if I'm going to make a book, isn't the point to make a print book? Why do I want an ebook? Well, the answer is, much like my own experience when I started the company, originally I thought of that work as a personal body of work. And within about a week, I realized, actually, no, it's a community project. There were 50 people in this work, and I needed to share it with 50 people. Guys, this is an amazing way, when you create a body of work, to be able to share that body of work instantly with people. It's amazingly portable. You can carry it with you, in your laptop bag, and it's tremendously engaging. One of the things that's happening now is the advent of rich media, sometimes known as enhanced ebooks. And so we've been very interested in this because for a long time, the books that we've seen, many of the books we've seen have been how-to kinds of books. Some of you may know Jerry Coavazier, who's an amazing photographer, but also a very fantastic technician, photo technician. He's doing a book right now with us on Lightroom. And he is beta testing our enhanced tools to also capture video, voiceover, show screenshots with voiceover in the enhanced ebook, show video footage, soundtrack, moving media. So what is happening now is the convergence of still media and moving media into a different kind of experience, also today known as a book, but tomorrow may be known as some other medium. I think a lot about, before there was television, there was radio, and when television first came out, it was sort of like radio on television. And I think that's kind of what we got going on now, which is books that are moving to the iPad and to the digital world are kind of replicas. They're like the physical book, except in a new medium. That is morphing very quickly. And I suspect within the next year, we will have maybe a new medium that we don't even call a book, but it will be this amalgam of text, image, voice, video, music, animation, 3D, all good. What is that thing? I don't know. I hope you're going to help create it. Digital books don't have to be replicas, but they can be. There's nothing wrong with a PDF also as a way to share out your work in such a way that is protected. Okay, physical or digital. I think a lot about when do you choose which. And I want to tell you a small personal story, and that is my brother-in-law, who sadly was killed in a car crash many years ago, was an amazing talent. He was a guy who was a couple years older than me. He was a cartoonist and an illustrator. He worked for Hanna-Barbera, but he was one of those guys who did everything, you know what I mean? He was a musician, he was a sculptor, he was a painter, he did photographs, he was like the original mashup guy. And I so looked up to him. And when Simon passed, I thought, oh, it was shortly after that I founded this company, and I thought, shit, can I say shit? Shit. If he was here now, what would he be doing? He would be making crazy books. It would be amazing. And so one of the comments I want to leave with you guys right now is, you know what? We are living now. We're here right now. And we're at this moment where what we used to think of as a book, which we've known as a book since Gutenberg and 14 whatever, it is changing right before our very eyes. I say to the folks at work, how often does that bus come around? That you are at that moment in time where you, as creators, get to completely reinvent what a book can and should be. That is an amazing opportunity. I invite you and exhort you to think about what you want to make this new medium. So, as a little bit of inspiration, what would Leonardo do, right? Well, here's a hint. Everything. And I mean that. I mean, it's all good. It's all in. You should do it all. So on the digital side, illustrations, text, video, voiceover, soundtrack, anime, whatever. On the print side, let me make a little call out here for limited editions. One of the coolest things about print on demand and self-publishing is, guys, you can make an edition of one. You can sell your work, and as you know, scarcity drives value. So make an edition of 100, charge buku bucks, make the e-edition affordable, drive a much larger audience. This is the new way that you can both drive scarcity and value and drive adoption and a wider audience through social tools. First photo book I ever bought. I was studying photography in San Francisco. And I think about this now, and if he was doing this book today, man, there'd be all kinds of greats. We would be hearing music from those juke joints, right, in that book. We'd be seeing the video of the people on this bus. How cool is that? Okay, so I'm going to wrap up a few points. Self-curated means it's democratic, but it's also all about you. I'm asked all the time about, well, in a world where, there's not a publisher involved, won't there just be crap coming out the other side? Well, the point is, there's lots of people who can give you feedback on your work, and I encourage that. I think we all need editors, but they can be in your community. They don't have to be paid for publishers. So curate your work and get some help from friends. Secondly, you do have complete creative control, so go for it. In a world where you can make a copy of one unit, experiment, test. You can do it again, make 30 editions. Budget, it's even less than this for an ebook. I mean, it's $9, right? For $30 budget. And by the way, out here, stop by our booth because there's a free card for you to make a book worth $75, so take advantage of that. No gatekeepers. No one's going to say no. You're on your own. That's the good and the bad. Go for it. Social discovery. Each one of us, and we heard this earlier today about, Corey talked about it in his Facebook presentation, around one person, my friends, and my friends of friends. It is amazing how quickly your audience expands when you use social media to get the word out about your books. Make some money. You can make, we paid out, just Blurb alone, we paid out more than $1 million in author royalties last year alone. So there were people making serious money on their books. And then creativity and commerce now, you know, those things used to be oxymorons. You know, you're either commercial or you're creative. Yeah, no more. Creative and commercial, enabled by technology. And it's all awesome. Those are my remarks. Thank you.
Got a few questions for you, Eileen. The first is, you know, you talk about the book really changing, and this is a moment in time where we have a way to influence what the book becomes. Why, in the current iteration of your ebook, do you kind of stick with the page paradigm?
Yeah, that is not forever.
Yeah.
That is a function of ebook standards right now. So if you want to be able to sell your book in the iBookstore from Apple as a book,
yeah,
we have to conform to a standard that Apple has written. That won't be forever.
Ah, interesting.
And I wish it weren't even the case today.
Right, right. How do you think photographers should sort of balance, you know, you made the comparison of a print book being kind of like slow food, and that you need to appreciate it in a certain way. And yet, in any sort of physical medium, inventory and distribution control are a huge part of like getting out to the people. So how should a photographer who is either a pro or semi-pro or aspiring pro kind of balance having printed books and maybe limited editions against electronic book publishing?
Yep. So I can speak to how we would respond to that. Okay, so as a vendor, is that okay?
Yeah.
So in our world, you don't deal with inventory or distribution or UPS or the post office at all. So you make a book, you upload the file, you can put it in our bookstore if you wish, and if you want to, you set your own price for it, something over and above the unit cost of one. When people come and buy your book, we print them on demand, we ship them for you, they get delivered, and we send you money when your book sells. That's it. There is no inventory in a print-on-demand world, none. And the fulfillment is all real time. So that part of it has been sorted out by vendors like us and others.
Yep.
There is a difference, though, and that is, in a physical world, it takes about 7 days turn to get your books back. In a virtual world, it's like download it immediately.
Yeah.
Just, it's instantaneous. So there is a factor of time that is definitely different. And what we're starting to see, because we launched ebook, what we're starting to see is people doing both, because they may want to get the word out about their books, so they make an e-version and they share it, and then they buy print copies as well and let people buy either, because you can mark up both.
Have you seen people that are using kind of teaser ebooks that don't have full content?
Totally. In fact, we have free tools to do that. So it's called Book Show. You can put it on your Facebook timeline. You can put it on your blog, your site, et cetera. And it's like a widget. And when you click on it, people can learn more about it, can like it, can comment on it, and they can buy a copy as well. So we think the new form of distribution is actually through your social networks.
You guys have some incredible samples and examples of books that obviously well-designed and great photographs, but I've also seen, not necessarily through you guys, but I've also seen a lot of crappy photo books, right? Things that mom and dad will create. What skills do you think photographers need to possess in order to create an effective book, and what things should they be outsourcing?
Yeah, that's a really good question. First of all, we see a lot of crappy books too. But can I say that even the bad ones are great, because it's somebody's ugly dog. So
you almost said kid, didn't you?
I did. I just saved myself there at the very last minute. I almost did. their dog. We do see those books. Now, for people who are creatives, the number one thing that we see is bad design, badly designed books, great work, crappy book, right? So unless you have some design chops yourself, you know, connect with your friends in the community, trade with them. We see that happening now a lot. I'll trade you a print in return for help designing my book. We see a lot of that. So design is the number one thing that I would recommend to outsource. Also, photographers are often not great writers. And so if you want to put some text in your book, maybe an introduction, get somebody else to write a little preface or introduction for you, it actually adds further weight and credibility to your work.
Eileen, thank you very much.
Thank you.